Hello.
We are back, baby.
So excited.
All right, listen, I've got first to issue congratulations to you. Good
Oh,
job keeping the show going, keeping it interesting. Great work.
thank you.
Love listening to my own podcast when I'm out and about. Super
It's
fun.
great.
We can review the guests. But first I have an airing of the grievances for
Ooh,
you, Ian.
boy.
I
Very
got a I got
exciting.
a freaking bone to pick with you. So I'm in Boise, which we'll talk about. I'm
Yeah,
in Boise. I'm listening to you and Caleb talk for like 7 hours about
it's a long one.
multi-selects and stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
And it's just somewhere in the middle, Ian says,
Hmm.
I'm making a budgeting app. Okay. Hang
Oh,
on.
I was
Back
wondering
up.
if you were gonna.
Back up. Rewind.
Oh, yep.
Rewind.
Uh-huh.
Just imagine in your head the rewind sound. And here comes a clip from an old, mostly technical, where Ian says, Aaron, why are you tracking finances? Why are you building a life OS? You're wasting your
Yeah.
time. And I'm sitting in a hotel in Boise,
You're
and
fuming.
Ian's like, yeah, I'm building a budgeting app because they all suck. And I'm like, what? That's what I said. That's what I said, and you gave me crap for it. And here I
I
am, like an
did.
idiot, not on the podcast, not
Yeah.
able to hold your feet to the fire, and you're talking about building a budgeting app. What the hell, man?
First of all,
Okay.
do you think that was an accident? It's not an accident. I dropped it when you're not here.
Unbelievable.
Second of all, I mean, a life OS and a budgeting app are sort of two different things. But
No,
I'm
they're
with
the
you.
exact
I'm with
same
you.
thing. They're the exact same thing.
Third of all, I'm already off it. Forget the budgeting app. Budgeting apps in the
Okay.
past. You know how I roll. I get these
I know how you
ideas,
roll.
and then I'm like, it's going to be too much time. It's too much work. Somebody actually turned me on to this Copilot.money, which is like a Mac native kind of thing, which is
Interesting.
pretty
Any
good.
good?
It's not bad. None of them do what I really want, which is more like I care less about the dollars and cents
Right.
and more about the idea of like creating resistance to you spending unnecessarily. I just when you spend stupid money with no like pushback, right? And so that's where like the pure budgeting app is like, okay, come in here when you have a chance and reconcile these things you
Right.
type. But it's like already in the past. Whereas like if
Right.
you're like entering it as you do it, it's like, well, should I do it?
You want a
Should I get the
behavior
cheaper one?
modifier.
Yeah, Pavlovian me a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
it's like more that side of it, which none of them do. But the reality is, I don't have any time to build it, so that's just kind of where it is.
Here's I got a lot of problems with you people. Here's your problem, Ian. You have too much knowledge. You've been doing this for too long, and you don't just blindly rush into something and be like, this is going to be easy. I'll just do this, which is what I do, which is great. You have too much knowledge, and you look at it and you're like, boy, this first 80% was easy. That second 80% is going to be hard. And you just say, I'm not going to do it.
That Laravel new step is it's glorious, right? You're like,
Yes.
oh man, there's files. I bring the flux in, putting stuff on the screen. It's great. But then, it's always like within like 2 days, I'm like, this is not worth it. Like, it's not going to make enough money to be worth it. It's not worth my time. It's just not worth it. So
see,
it's too much work to market.
That's the problem. You got to have a little more just blind, naive optimism and just say, I'm just going to keep doing this.
I have some ideas along those lines that work with HelpSpot itself. So I can maybe put some of that idea, turn the old thing into the new thing, as Chris Rock would have said a long time ago, and not as politically correct way. But I got some ideas I want to talk about with the team about some HelpSpot stuff we might do to give us some of that juice, some of that adventure sort of aspect, but still keeping focused on the thing that actually makes money. Because whenever I focus on this thing that doesn't make money, I never make more money. And it just eats into like family time and rest time.
We don't like that.
I know, I can't. It's like, this is an area where I do feel a big difference because so Apple always shows me pictures from like 2015. We might have talked about this a little bit before, but like for some reason the algo is like 2015, always these pictures, right? And it's all like kid stuff, whatever. But 2015 was like a crazy year. Like I had all kinds of stuff going on. The kids were little. It was just chaos. And I'm like, but then I was also like working till late at night and doing all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know where I got all the energy. It's crazy. Like that's where you are now. So you're in that zone.
That's where I am
about
now.
the same age.
Yep.
Like you still have the energy, but let me tell you, you got to cherish it. It's only going to last a little bit longer. And then Like another 5-6 years, you're gonna be like, oh man, like I can't be working at 10 o'clock at night. It's
See,
too
that's
hard.
why I don't need these no men in my life telling me don't do stuff. I'm like, no, I gotta do stuff. Time's running out, baby.
But you gotta make the stuff work together in some way. That's the thing. If you just go
Yes.
off on the sides, it's not, you know, again, like we talked about last time you were here, it's a little different for you. If you make the LifeOS app and you stream it and you make videos from it and it inspires you, that is you working, right? Like that's not disconnected from what you're trying to do. So it depends a little bit. But for me, it's totally disconnected. There's no overflow. There's no connection. There's just going to be time spent. I'm probably not going to finish it anyway. And then I'll have wasted 2 months on it and that'll be annoying. And so, yeah, but playing with Flux was good. It did give me a couple days of playing with Flux, which then got me inspired for some more stuff I want to do with HelpSpot with Flux. So that's all good. And I totally, as I was saying those words last week, I was like, Aaron's going to kill me. I knew you were going to be very mad. I was like, there's no way I'm getting away with this one. I could try to bury this in a 3-hour-long podcast, but he's
can do
going
the first
to find
hour
it.
and a half about browser quirks, and then you say you're building a budgeting app, and I'm honing in. There's
They are
no
all
chance.
bad, though. I have to say, they're all bad. Like,
they're all bad.
See, I never used a budgeting app before, so I couldn't relate to you when you said that 8 months ago or whenever we talked about it. And trying them all, they're all pretty bad. Like
they're all wrong.
Yeah, they're all wrong. I will agree with that. They're either too much, or they're too little,
or they're too smart, or they're too dumb.
Too smart. Yeah. So,
and what Caleb said about like just the basics. I have a credit card and I have a bank account, and when I pay off my credit card, don't make 8 entries that all look like, you know, I made a ton of money and then lost a ton of money. It's like, no, the money was spent a long time ago. Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. This Copilot Money does have a thing it calls like an internal transfer, which I think is how it deals with that. So that was sort of interesting. I haven't seen it actually happen yet where the payment went through. So, but it did a lot of stupid stuff too. Like it imported, I just want to start this month. Like I don't want to start, but it imported a bunch of old stuff. And it miscategorized all the old stuff. So that's all useless. So we like went through there and like deleted all the old stuff, but they didn't give me the option. Like just give me the option. I don't want to import the old stuff. Like forget the old stuff. That's in the ancient history. I don't care about the old stuff.
What am I going to do about that? Nothing.
Well, I only care about today going forward. So they're all bad. I don't know. At least this one's a Mac native app, although it's been slow, which is annoying me. But apparently some other Mint thing went out of business like earlier this year, and like so they had a huge like 10x the customers after that shut down, and so I think it's a little bit crazy. But yeah, all right. Well, fair point.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. Just wanted to air those grievances.
Yeah, I can't even fight you on that one. All right. So
here's the other thing, just quickly. I think side projects like that are great because you just took all that Flux knowledge right back into HelpSpot.
Yes.
So that's something.
Pushing out and doing these things is useful.
Yes.
I think that for me, it's like if I can then pull myself back before it goes too far, it's like that's like the good balance.
I've yet to learn that part, but I agree.
You kind of do, because then you just stop and it's like whatever.
That's true.
But yeah,
that's true.
But yeah, I don't know. You got to find the right thing. A side project for me has to be it has to be perfect, and there's no perfect side project. That's the thing. It's like if it takes up too much time, it's not going to work because like I got to pay the bills, got to support the thing that makes the money. But if it's too light, it's kind of pointless. I wouldn't mind a really light one, I guess, that did something. It wasn't about making money. It was like just a thing that was interesting in some way. But like we've talked about, I never have those kind of ideas. So I don't have any like just it's a cool thing that exists and just to be. But
one of the great quotes from the creator of SQLite when asked about like why did you write a database? He said, well, if I had known you weren't supposed to write your own database, I wouldn't have done it. And I'm like, yeah, that I totally feel that. Like we can get to it later, but this kind of like terminal TUI thing that I'm building, it's like if I had known you weren't supposed to build tmux and PHP, I wouldn't have done it. But I didn't know that, so I just freaking did it. And that's how I feel a little bit about some of these side projects. Like I'm just whatever. I'm just gonna try it. If it works, it works. I don't know. What are the rules? So
people are excited about your terminal stuff. I haven't even gone too deep on it because I hate the terminal. Everybody's trying to go to the terminal. I don't like the terminal. I don't want to be in the terminal. I want you to do stuff that requires me not ever being in the terminal. That's what I'm trying to do. But the people, they love the terminal. And you got the little tabs going. It's crazy.
People love the tabs.
How much innovation I remember the name of the package because I never use it. But the package that Jess came up with is sort of
Yeah.
unleashed. I assume this is all that
It
underneath,
is.
right?
It's
Yeah.
all that package is called Laravel prompts. It's all
Prompts, yeah.
Laravel prompts plus Joe Tenenbaum has like a helper package that does a lot of like some of the nasty formatting stuff for you. And
Yeah.
what's so interesting about this like realm is it's all so archaic. And so we
Right.
have these nice like Laravel prompts and Joe has Chewy on top of that, but underneath it's just all like text and escape codes and these like these completely inscrutable little strings of characters, and it's like, oh yeah, that turns the text red and the background blue. It's like, why? That makes
Why?
no sense to me. So that's been kind of wild, but it's super fun.
Well, of course, because it all harkens back to when the internet was like pure, right? It's like email
Yes.
is still awesome, even though it's terrible and everything about it's horrible, but it's
Yes,
also
agreed.
awesome because there's no gatekeepers, there's no
Mm-hmm.
rules, there's just like the protocol raw, and that's it. Whereas, like, obviously, if you're on Twitter or you have this thing or Facebook or all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, even a regular website now, it's like you have to have this appify it all. It's like all this stuff that's on
Yep.
top, that's complex, and you can't ever get down underneath it. Whereas, like, hey, the terminal. Yeah, this is how it's literally worked for 40 years or 50
It's
years or whatever it's
crazy.
been. You
And
can't change
this
it.
is
It's impossible to change, and this is just what it is. You just have to deal with
this is one of those things where it's like I don't know anything about it. So when people are
it.
like, oh, the terminal and the shell and the TTY, I'm like, are those different things? I don't know what any of those things are. What's the
Yeah,
difference between a terminal and a shell? I have no idea. And at
couldn't
this
tell you.
point, I don't really care. Like,
Right.
what am I going to do with that knowledge? I don't know. But people are always talking about like somebody DM'd me and was like, well, Ghost TTY is going to be open source soon. I'm like, my friend, I have no idea what you're
Speaking
even
French
saying.
to me here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other line is, why don't you just use Tmux? Tmux, you just invented Tmux. I'm like, man, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Never
Don't know
used
about
it.
it.
Never looked into it. Never
Yeah.
Googled what is Tmux. I just thought, hey, this is cool. I'm gonna do this. But yeah, this whole layer of like computers, like, man, no freaking clue. But hey,
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, well, because you weren't like, boy, I want my terminal to act different. You were kind of coming at it from and then you weren't out there like researching alternative terminals and the whole thing. You were coming
Yeah.
at it from a different angle of like, there's people doing cool stuff. At least my impression is, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, people are doing cool stuff on the terminal, and I want to do cool stuff on the terminal.
Yes.
And you were coming at
Yes.
it from that angle.
And
So,
I think there's an interesting I think philosophical concept here. But before we get to that, my point of
mm,
view was like, I feel like a normie. Like,
right,
there are people, people that use Vim, just like super power users.
right, yeah,
I'm much more down in the PHP storm, right? I'm just like
right.
a total
You're
normie.
just a
And so
dude doing stuff.
if you're telling me to use Docker Compose or Tmux, I'm like, I don't really want to
Yeah,
do that.
right.
And that's okay. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah,
And so that was where a lot of the if there was any pushback at all, it was like, why is this better than Docker Compose? And it's like, aha, because you said Docker, and I don't want to use Docker. That's why it's better. But I think here's something I'm workshopping.
mm,
I'll be curious your take on this. The philosophical takeaway is,
mm,
because I was having this discussion on Twitter with somebody the other day, and it was like 8 tweets deep of them trying to understand why Solo, this thing I'm building, Solo is better. And I
mm.
was just like, I can't answer. After 8 tweets, I was like, I'm sorry, I have no answers that will satisfy you. And the philosophical takeaway is that he couldn't get his head around that a lot of people seem to like it. It was like, why is everybody so excited about this
Right.
when Docker Compose exists? And my takeaway was, and I feel this towards React, if everyone is excited or like really likes something and I don't, perhaps it is me that is wrong.
Mm,
Perhaps the market is telling me or you something that is true and we're too stubborn to believe it. And so that's kind of how I feel about like maybe potentially React. Like, if everyone in the whole
mm,
world loves it, which I don't think they do, but if
yeah,
everyone loves it and I'm like, this makes no sense to me, there's a chance that I'm in the wrong here. And I think that applies a lot to like, I think back to like side projects I've tried where it's like, I just got to convince the whole world that this is better. It's like,
right.
ooh, that's not gonna work. So maybe go
Yeah.
with the market instead of against. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's usually a good angle on it, right? That like if the market, I'm a big market guy. If the market is
Love
saying
markets.
something's good, then that generally means it is good. Not universally true, but generally true. But I think with software, it's even kind of different than that because it's like there's just room for a lot of different things. There doesn't there
Yes.
right? So like you're not even limited in that way. It's like some people like this, and if you don't like that, then you can go over here. Or even you can just build a thing that already exists and you can just do it because it's fun and a hobby and it doesn't like really cost resources per se. As long as you're putting your time in and you're okay with that, like it's not even really duplicating because you it's still going to be different in some way, right? We've all used
Yes,
tools
totally.
that's like, well, I use this other tool. It's just, I mean, like the budgeting apps, like they're all 95% the same. But you know, whatever that 5% difference is, I'm still trying to find the one that fits that little 5% difference of what I would like it to be, right? And so, yeah, yeah. But generally, yes, the market, and also, well, people nowadays want to get angry about things, right, or whatever.
They
They
do.
want to be like, why are people like your thing, but they don't like my thing, or they don't like the thing I like, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yes.
I don't
But
know.
the way that I'm internalizing this is the next time I'm trying to build something, pitch something, market something, sell something, just harness the energy of where everything is going and don't try to
Right.
swim upstream. Just like,
That's always
just
the best
do
way.
what the
Yeah.
people want.
Right.
And I think
Exactly.
there's, of course, there's still room for taste and nuance and like points of view, but it's gonna be a lot easier if you're kind of like in the zeitgeist, moving with the culture instead of against it.
Totally agree. I mean, this has always been my whole philosophy. I built the whole business on is like the similar idea of like don't build things that don't basically already exist in some fashion because like to teach people that it should exist is like a monumental effort versus like, oh, everybody's looking for this thing. I should just
Yeah,
build another one of these things everybody's looking for and then feed off the idea that like 5% of all these other ones will be wrong and there'll be some sufficient percentage of the market that's looking for the way you do things that little bit different that makes it click better, that for whatever reason satisfies some need that they have that the other ones don't, and boom, then that's how you can build your business. Like going against the stream is very difficult, which I mean that's also though where the biggest wins are, right?
of
Like when you
course.
go
Yeah.
against the stream and you're right, or you can convince people you're right, then that's when you have a
Yep.
mega huge home run because you now have this huge market you've created of everybody's going to move off the old bad thing to your new good thing, and that's how you become a billionaire. But
Yep.
obviously it's also very
But
unlikely
you
to
can become
happen,
a mini millionaire by
right,
saying this is Basecamp but better. It's like,
right,
oh, I know what
exactly.
Basecamp is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
I'll just
8 million
use this thing.
people
Yeah.
searching for project management software every day, and
Yes.
I'll just try to capture some of those versus
Yes.
reinvent the project management software paradigm and call it something
Correct.
different and try to make that work
Try to
in the world.
educate the entire market.
Right, very difficult to
Yeah.
do.
Don't want
So
to do that.
yeah, and yeah, so you've been streaming all this, right? Like, or a lot
I've
of
been
it
streaming
anyway.
a
It
lot
seemed
of it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I started streaming it and then went to Boise earlier this week. And so I haven't streamed the most recent updates. But yeah,
Mhm.
did some streaming of it. Had Joe on for a joint stream, which was a lot of
Ah,
fun. And yeah, it's it's one of those. So you talked about you mentioned like side projects that feed the business rather than side projects that like that don't and go
right,
nowhere. This is the way that Steve and I talk about this is like, do the vectors aligned? So like if the business is heading in a certain direction, we want all of we want all of most of what we do to like further us in pursuit of going that direction.
right.
And so when we think about a project, it's like, well, do the vectors align on this? And it's like, yeah, like these things all kind of go together and this one doesn't. So let's stop that one. Doing
Yep,
stuff like this, it's like 3 or 4 things pointing all the same way, thrusting us towards our goal, which is
right.
awesome. So
Yeah,
it's like you get to build some open source, which, we're redoing aaronfrancis.com, and eventually all open source projects will live there. And so we'll get,
mm,
all the docs traffic will come there.
yep,
So we'll get some traffic out of it, get some, notoriety out of like having the package out there, but also get to stream it and then
yep,
also get to make YouTube videos about it, here and there. And so it's like, yeah, this is one of those things that I think for a business that is shaped differently would be a massive waste of time.
right.
And so that's the hard part when when people look at stuff that I do, but also when I look at stuff that other people do, and I'm like, what a stupid waste of time. I have to remind myself, wait a second, I don't know their business at all. This may make perfect sense for their business. I don't know what they're optimizing for, but this for us makes a ton of sense, and it happens to be a blast. And so I get all kinds of streams, tweets, docs, YouTube videos. I get all kinds of content out of it and stay in like the top of people's minds, which is very important. And I only want to do that by doing cool stuff, not by talking all the time. And so that's the hard part, is like actually have to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously if you're creating value, essentially, right? From whether you're teaching people something or even just entertaining them, but it's still in this devy angle. Yeah, it's really cool. And are people using Solo like
already
in anger yet?
I don't know if they're doing it in anger yet. There have been a few very helpful issues that have been opened, but people seem to thoroughly enjoy it. It is most closely a response to npx concurrently, which is just like a JavaScript process runner that just munges all the output together. And so I think people, with the new Composer dev that Taylor released recently, people like the idea of having everything together and behind one command to start all the processes.
Right.
And to the extent that there's discontent with concurrently, then that's where Solo steps in. It's like, hey, you can have all this in separate tabs. And people seem to be really liking it. I've gotten some very helpful PRs already.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
The open source empire grows.
It grows. It grows. In furtherance of the we joked this week in Boise that we're the opposite of a not-for-profit. We are a definitely for-profit. And so the open source empire grows to further the definitely for-profit empire.
Yeah. Well, that's where a lot of people try to get to, It's like that's the dream of a lot of open source projects, but they don't have the way to actually do it,
Gotta have a back end.
Well, maybe we should talk about Boise since we're right here.
Let's talk about Boise.
Kind of fits in. So you went to Boise.
I went to Boise.
How was that?
That was why Caleb filled in, because I realized on Sunday night, I think, that my flight to Boise was way earlier than I had anticipated. So thank you to Caleb for doing that. Yeah, flew to Boise on Monday, flew back on Wednesday. So we got, Monday afternoon, all day Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning together. Kelsey came in from Iowa.
Nice.
I've just learned that she does not live in Ohio. I told a whole bunch of friends that she lives in Ohio. She doesn't. It's Iowa. Very different, 4 letters. Apparently.
It's fine.
Yeah, I know. Bunch of O's. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
it's all the same thing.
O's.
It's all the same letters, same states. It doesn't matter. So she flew over or up or, I don't know, down, who knows, from Iowa to Idaho, which hysterically are different places as well. And it was great. We spent so much time just like getting all of the plans and ideas onto paper and making them a little bit more real. So we have all these ideas of like, we could do anything. It's like, yes, but what are we going to do and when? And how do we not kill ourselves in pursuit of launching another course? Because the last 2 have been just so rough, which has been, fine. We have to get off the ground and make money. But now that we have, what do we do next? And so I'll give you, I'll give you broad strokes and then we can talk details. But broad strokes, I think we've come up with a good framework. You are familiar with A/B testing, yes?
I am.
Are you familiar with multi-arm bandit testing?
I mean, I've heard the term, but I couldn't necessarily tell you what the specifics are.
This is why Ian is a professional, because he knows I'm about to try to explain something, and he sets me up with a softball. He's like, kind of. Why don't you explain it to the audience, Aaron?
I won't tell you about that ebook I wrote about it 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just pretend that doesn't exist.
Just pretend for the sake and the edification of the audience. It's like, it's like a trained professional. Since you don't know, Ian, let me tell you.
Yes, tell me.
A/B testing tests 2 things against each other. Great. Awesome. Multi-armed bandit, or I guess Monte Carlo is another way to say that, is you have maybe 10 options and you don't really know which one is best. And insidiously, it may change over time which one is best. And so what you do is you embark upon this strategy called explore and exploit. So you have 10 options and you run 10% of traffic to all 10. When one starts to win, you redirect more traffic to the one that is winning. However, you don't redirect all traffic there. You continue to test the other 9, such that if one of those other 9 starts to win, you kind of like shift that traffic back. And so this is called explore exploit, because you explore all 10 strategies, and when you find a winner, you start to exploit it, maybe 80, 20, 90, 10, but you're still exploring other stuff on the side. And so that's kind of our strategy for Try Hard Studios, is explore, exploit. And what we're going to continue to exploit is database education. Like we know that works. We have found product market fit. I am able to do it. People enjoy paying for it. And so it's like, we can't just give that up. As much as I might want to like, go become Casey Neistat or something, we can't just give that up. However, we can't over exploit, because then you ride your success over the top and you start to decline, right? And so if you just do the exact same thing forever, you might make good money like for a while, but then you end up maybe this is the innovator's dilemma. I don't know. I haven't read it, but you end up like declining because you're not trying new things. And so where we've landed is, in the next 6 months, a year, we're going to produce maybe 1 or 2 more database courses. We're going to do screencasting.com revamp altogether. And those are our exploitation channels. We know that those things make money. We know that those things will work. So we're going to do it. So that's like, 60, 70% of the time. And the other 30% of the time, we're going to explore. And we have lots of fun ideas on that, which we can talk about. What do you think?
I like it. So in the like businessy, not that that's not businessy, but like
it was a little analytic. It was a little technical. Yeah.
Like the way I would also, that this is also framed sometimes is like as the cash cow. Like this is your cash cow, and the cash cow will eventually decline, but along the way before the decline, right, is like this time period where you're going to make a ton of money, and so you want to maximize the cash cow. But then you also need, there's a name for the other phase, but whatever, I don't remember it. But yes, like you want to also then be innovating with some of your time and effort for the next cash cow to appear. So yes, I like that. That's good. So what are the other arms then?
Yeah. So there are 3 arms. 2 of them are exploitative: database and screencasting. Those are just like, we got to do those things whether you kind of want to or not. We got to do it. Also, this this like mentality frees both of us up. Steve is very like, let's just do the thing that works because it makes money and we should make money. And I'm like, oh man, that's a good idea. That's a great point, Steve. I love Steve for that.
I was gonna say, I do feel like you've been wrangled slightly. Like that's the word that comes to mind, is that Aaron got a little bit wrangled on this. I
got my wings clipped.
Maybe just a little bit.
No. So one of the great things about Steve is like a competent executive. It's like if you could pick someone to run your business, it would probably be Steve.
Right.
If you could pick someone to do crazy stuff and create a spectacle, it's me. And so like, how do we
he wants to be rich. You want to be king. So this is the interesting combining of these two philosophies.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it was a little bit of wrangling. And it was actually incredibly helpful to be in the same room. We got to use an office in Boise that had a whiteboard. And so it was me, Steve, and Kelsey in this room for like 3 or 4 hours just whiteboarding.
Nice.
And that's after we spent, an hour and a half in the coffee shop getting ready to go over to the office. And so a lot of the conversation was basically like trying to square that circle of, hey, Aaron, want to do just like all this interesting stuff. And Steve was like, that's fantastic. We need to make money. It's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. That's a really good point. I never thought of that. And so this is like, I do believe that having an explore phase is actually important for the business. And I think Steve also definitely agrees. I think we maybe reined in the scope of that just a little bit, and putting on paper what is our exploit phase of the business, I think lowered Steve's anxiety a lot, because I think when he hears me talk, because Steve and I talk for like an hour or two a day, like almost every single day. When he hears me talk, it's just like, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did this? And he's like, we gotta, those are all great ideas. And he does that some too, but we gotta make money. And so settling basically on 60 to 70% cash cow and 30 to 40% explore makes everybody feel super happy, because I get to go out and try to find the next database education stream of income, and we get to like hopefully continue to boost up our baseline of monthly income. So yeah, a little bit reined in, but not much.
Not much, just a little. Well, I think I like this in that I think there's like a natural evolution. Like in reality, there's probably only, I don't know, how many database courses could you really do? Like 6, 7, you know, like for your market that you like, again, like if you get into Oracle and advanced Oracle and super advanced Oracle, like maybe, but that's not really your shtick either, I would say, right? So like if we stay with like the open source databases that web devs use on a regular basis, like you got 1 or 2 more of those, then you can maybe get into like ClickHouse and some of those specialty ones a little bit, but then that's pretty much it. Like you're going to be at the end of that road unless you niche down into advanced this or that or whatever. So I think that, and then, but on the flip side is once you have 5 of these or whatever, then it doesn't need you as much. It's like, let's make sure we sell these 5. And maybe we need Aaron once in a while to like refresh something or add a module for the new version or whatever. But like you could have just business people doing businessy stuff, selling these courses that now exist on platforms that don't really change that much year over year. So it's like you might have to do this push you've been doing, not at the same pace, which was probably unrealistic, but you know, over another year and a half or something like that. And then you'll be like, okay, now we've got the stable of, you know, video courses that we can just sell and market and all that stuff, which then should free you up for more time for finding the next thing, because you'll have this backlog of, or, you know, this inventory of existing content. So
yes, that is the dream. I think mentally I view it, this is a bad mental image, but I view it as like I'd plow through and leave a wake of destruction behind me, and then Steve and Kelsey come in and kind of shore it up. It's not necessarily destruction, but that's kind of like that. I do like that. Like I just totally plow through a course, and then right now, literally right now, Steve and Kelsey's, you know, answering emails and doing a little bit of outbound sales. Steve is doing outbound sales and, you know, handling inbound big requests. And it's like, that's great. That is just not what I am good at. And I think there are things that I am good at, but that ain't it. And so I do like this structure, because you're right. Once we get to, let's say 5 database courses and our you know, our custom platform is kind of like basically done, I'm gonna have so much exploration time while still hopefully making a bunch of money off of the back catalog. So that's kind of the dream.
And there's, like, to be super businessy for a second, there will be synergies between the database courses, right? Like, because once they're in there, people need 2 or 3, and then they buy 2 or 3, and you know, you have more stuff to sell them. All those kind of things. You could imagine even other sorts of accessories or whatever that go along with it. Yeah, I like that. And you might have to grind a little bit here along the way, but also you're kind of striking while the iron's hot. Like you have companies coming to you and sponsoring your development of these, which is insane. And that might not be something that lasts forever either. So it's nice now to know that like these VC backed sort of database companies are willing to throw some money at you, which is great, which, you know, who knows in a year if that's true. So you can get a couple more of those. That just obviously super helps the profit margin if you can put a good chunk of change just in your pocket up front. So
6 figures just for like releasing the thing.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Really, I'll take really that. Impacts the business proposition there quite a bit.
Moves the needle.
Yeah. So that like de-risks the entire thing. So I like that.
Yep. Okay, so
but it isn't
what's
the most fun necessarily?
It's not the most fun, and I'm okay with that now.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable.
I think this is a good balance. I like it.
This is a good balance. So, what are the explorations? I believe
Yes.
that was your question.
Yes, give them to us. Tell us the secrets. Is this a
So,
place?
it's not, because I always tell my ideas, and you're like, I've got ideas too, but
I
I'm
tell
not
my
going to tell you.
ideas.
I'm just
My
going to tell
ideas.
all my other friends, but not on the podcast, so we can keep the content
Only when you're
pure.
not here. Only when you're
Yeah,
not
it's
here.
unbelievable. So the whole move to the factory / warehouse, create the physical product thing, that is going to be the first thing that we're cooking in the lab. And so
Okay.
that's the first. That's the third leg of the stool. So we have 2 exploit and 1 explore. The explore leg is factory / physical product. And so, minor update for the super fans of the pod, we're going to push the physical product start to the new year. So even though this would maybe make sense, and that may narrow down some choices, it would maybe make sense to like ride the new year, new you wave. It's not a calendar, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. But the strategy here is going to be so there are a lot of YouTube channels. It's very YouTube centric, this exploration thing. It's very YouTube centric, perhaps very TikTok centric as well, which is not something I'm super familiar with. But the strategy here is there are a lot of maker channels on YouTube where it's like, watch me, build a house, build a table, build a retaining wall, all that kind of stuff, build some robots, build some marble sculptures, like love all that stuff, right? A lot of that. There's some content, and it does very well, about like, hey, I'm going to start a furniture flipping business. I'm going to start a 3D printing business. I'm going to start an X-Carve CNC business. Let me reveal all my financials. Watch me do it. So we're going to do somewhat of a combination of those 2 things. It's not strictly like, hobbyist robotics or something like that, which are channels that I love to watch, but that's not my shtick. And it's not behind the scenes business on the course arm of the business. But what it is going to be is behind the scenes business on building and manufacturing a physical product and selling it and all the things that go into it, looking at, Shopify dashboards and talking about strategies and being totally open with revenue, because it's going to be very small. So I don't super care. But I feel like that's going to be a good hook for people, and that'll bring them into kind of the try hard empire. But it's not like we're trying to get some kind of overlap, some kind of vector alignment. And I think it's going to be like the behind the scenes business that is the realm that we want to step into. And the vehicle will just be manufacturing these physical products. But really, it's like, this is it's kind of like a My First Million or Peter Levels, or any of these people that share business stuff, but on a much more personal and like ride along kind of like bootstrapper podcast style content.
Vloggy style, or not?
Vloggy in terms of like production, but not vloggy in terms of like, hey, watch me get in my car, I'm heading to work, watch me do that. But it is gonna be like, hey, I'm in the factory, here's what I'm working on today. And so they'll be produced, but it'll be a much lower production effort than like one of our screencasts would be.
And now, is this on the Aaron Francis channel, or this is a new thing?
This is a new thing. This is a new thing.
Kind of good, because I thought YouTube doesn't really like when you mix your message to some degree. Right?
Yeah. So we will have one channel for this more like business indie maker lifestyle content, and we will retain the current channel for developer content.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
People are gonna yell at you. They're gonna say that's fine. This is out there.
That's fine.
Too far away.
That is okay. You know what? It's my freaking life, and I have to live it. I mean, that is 100% true. It is my life, but it's also true that, like, without naming any names, I've seen educators and indie businesses ride it over the top because they just keep doing the exact same thing. I think if there's any criticism to be made here, it's like, y'all aren't even close to the top. Keep going.
Well, that's definitely true.
Yeah. We are. Like, I get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And we are going to keep going. We're spending 60 to 70% of our time on keeping going. It just so happens that a lot of the visible time, it may from the outside appear that I'm spending 80% of my time on exploration, which is the goal. Like, I want you to perceive that. I need to be somebody for this business to work. I think I need to be seen as somebody who does things and does interesting things. And so like the outward perspective will be a little bit skewed. But yeah, this is wild. That's why it's an experiment. And that's why I feel good that like if it falls on its face, that's okay. It was 30% time. Like, who cares?
Sorry. So if I may push back just ever so slightly.
Oh, please.
The audience loves this. So where does like the terminal stuff fit in?
Terminal stuff fits in the, it is in the exploration bucket, but it's not like a wild hair, kind of like the factory stuff is. Like this terminal stuff is in furtherance of getting developer mindshare, which is like core line of business. And so doing this hopefully keeps my standing in the developer mind so that we can, you know, give them education and other products.
And then you're also supposed to be building a brand new JavaScript library for Laracon EU.
Whoopsie doopsie.
3 months. Yep. So how does that fit in? Wow. I mean, I get it's along the developer thing, but like time-wise, how does that fit in?
So time-wise, right now, I'm not on the hook for, I need to finish Postgres, which is always, you know, it's always there. So, but I'm not on the, we're not starting production of a new database course anytime soon. That'll be
my next question. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be maybe 2 months away. And the next ones that we do are going to be very easy. So I'm going to do like a very low cost introduction to SQL course. We're talking like $39. And so, it's
hold on.
Whoa. Let me just finish. Let me just finish.
That. Okay.
Oh,
finish,
thank goodness.
I love that.
Thank goodness. All right, you can talk.
It's one of my favorite things ever. I have to look it up, but you keep talking while I look up the thing.
So the idea there is it'll be extremely easy for me to produce because it's introduction to SQL. So I don't need to go into the nuances of B trees and primary keys and leaf nodes and stuff. Nobody freaking cares.
Or anything specific at all to like the database.
It will be very accessible at, you know, $39. And it will be extremely broad. And so this is one of those courses that won't rely on Twitter launch hype, which is very valuable, but something we're trying to like not like tie our entire business to.
Probably a good idea.
So don't give me any blue sky in here. I'm not prepared for that. No, we got other stuff we got to talk about. Nobody cares about blue sky.
Everybody's sad.
So we'll start production of that maybe in January, February. And so for now, the like programming projects are fitting in more to the exploit side, but also I don't have the factory yet, so I'm not even spending. I haven't even started the physical product stuff yet. So it's kind of like we're still in this like let's round out the year phase, and then when we get the factory in January, I anticipate being a little bit more have clearer lines on what furthers the business versus what potentially remakes the business fundamentally.
Okay, I think that sounds reasonable.
Satiated?
I'm satiated for now.
Okay,
for now, I'll be excited to watch you go through this process. I want more Aaron pure vlog content though. See, I think you need. I want to see you get in the car. I want you to get in the car, and I want you to drive to the workshop, and I want you to then tell me what you're working on today and blah blah blah. I want to know what you had for breakfast. I want you to say goodbye to the kids and have their little faces blurred out. I want the whole thing. That's what I want.
I know. I freaking know. It's crazy.
Going that way, I feel like you got to go all the way. You got to like. That is what those things are, right? Like,
I will take this into consideration because I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it.
I don't know. I just think that builds that relationship. It's like you feel like you know Casey Neistat because like you've been in his house, you've been in his office. Casey Neistat. He's out in the street, people are saying hi, like the whole thing. Like
freaking who was it that was just recently talking? They saw Casey Neistat and like I think it was John Rudolph Drexler. Yeah, saw him in New York City and it was like his now fiance said, "Hey, there's your guy," and he looked over and it was Casey Neistat. And he's like, "That's." Not my guy, but that's famous YouTuber great. Casey Neistat. Yeah. That's the goal.
All right. I like it. So pure SQL course.
Tell me why you love one of my ideas. So this is great for me.
I can't find the book, of course, but like the very first book I got in like the 90s at some point on SQL, there was this guy, I can't remember his name because that would have made it easier. But he was sort of like the spokesman for Cold Fusion, or he was involved in like evangelizing Cold Fusion. And he wrote Cold Fusion books. And then he also wrote a like just T-SQL or whatever, just SQL book. And it was like super thin. It was just like the core syntax of SQL. And that thing was the best SQL book I've ever used. It was perfect. It was like had everything you needed. And it just like it got you into it to understand it, but without when you go into like an Oracle SQL book and it's like, well, there's like all this special stuff and triggers and all the stuff that's like
let's
super
talk about
confusing.
the page size of the underlying records.
Right,
Like,
all
I don't
that
freaking
stuff.
care.
No, it's just like how do select and update and delete work. Great. And now I have I can build something with just this without knowing really anything else. And then obviously you hit problems because that's not really true. And then you dig down in as you go, but it's not like that big first jump of like, oh, I have to learn this whole database platform. It's like, nope, just like here's the raw SQL. So I think that's cool. I don't know if the modern developer will appreciate that. So I don't know if it's a good business idea, but I like the idea myself.
I almost got an unmitigated stamp of approval from Ian. Almost.
Like, it's probably not going to take you that much time, right? No. So like, and so I do think that's a cool, like, I think it's going to be good business wise too, because I think it's always interesting to have a low cost of entry type of thing too. It's like, hey, here's our $39 thing. You can see how we do if you like us and all that stuff. And they're going to want, anybody who buys that will want the platform specific one at some point. So yeah, I think it's like very low risk. And since people don't do stuff like that anymore, I do think it's cool because people don't do that. They're not like, here's JavaScript 101 or whatever. They're always like, oh, it's React or it's Next.js or whatever, right? Like it's always this complication around it. So yeah, I like it.
And here's the other another great thing about this is I don't have to be the one that like writes the outline, right? So like with Postgres, I had to do many dozens of hours of research and outlining and experimenting just to be able to reach point 0 where I sit down and start recording, which that is a freaking slog. With this, the plan is have Kelsey go and research Introduction to SQL courses, which are traditionally offered by universities. And so she's going to go out and do all the research, find out like here, you know, across 20 different university courses, here's the 90% overlap of what these people think Introduction to SQL is. And so then I will take that and I mean, I'll have to put together some test data or something like that. But I don't have to research what a select statement is or what an insert statement is. So I can just
You're good on that stuff.
I can get all of the research from Kelsey, sit down and start recording. And so I think it's going to be probably an order of magnitude easier than Postgres was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I really like that. I think that's going to be really good. Yep. I like it. I like it. So when you trying to do that, like by the spring or something like that?
Yeah, so that'll be we kind of rough timeline. We want to in 2025 rough timeline. We want to do well, that's not a timeline. In 2025, our rough goal is to have 3 more database courses with 2 of them being easy. And so Intro to SQL is one. We're still kind of waffling on the second, and then potentially MySQL is the not easy one that we would do in 2025.
Oh, really? I thought you might put MySQL in the easy camp since you've done it before.
Easy in terms of I know it all and I've done it before. Hard in terms of it's another comprehensive.
It's a big
100 video. Yeah, one of those freaking things. So that's much harder. But yeah, not hard in terms of like what ClickHouse would be, where I would have to like sit down for 6 months and play with it because it's fundamentally different than anything I've ever done. I may just have Jess teach that one. She's the wizard now. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. Even for these complicated ones you don't know well, you could experiment with like intro to ClickHouse. And it's like just the baseline, it's 20 videos. It's like get you started. And then if there's demand, you do the advanced ClickHouse, which is more money and the comprehensive. And if not, you can just like, you didn't waste 3 or 4 months like figuring every edge case out. It's like, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I can move on. So
yeah.
All right. I got a little side adventure for us here.
I love a side adventure.
A little side adventure.
Give me a side quest. What do you got?
So thinking about, we're going to go meta. We're going to go meta on the podcast. Okay. So we have a new sponsor coming on next couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple other people reach out about sponsorship,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. Thank you all. We appreciate you sponsoring the show. Okay. But
Okay.
I want to kick this idea around with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sponsorship, it's got its upsides, right? Like we make some money, it supports the show, helps us feel like our time is well spent.
And let me guess, does it have some downsides?
But it has some downsides, right?
I knew it.
There's some
I knew it.
downsides. There's some downsides, it's a lot of time. It's not that much money, so it's taking time away from other things. It's it interrupts the show, which isn't like my favorite aspect of.
I was surprised to hear myself do an ad read in one of the episodes that I listened to. I was like, oh wow, that's weird. How do I fast forward this guy?
This guy's annoying me. So I thought we should kick around the idea of what if we did like a Patreon sort of thing. Could we do $8 a month?
No.
Support the show.
I hate it. Ian, I hate it.
Oh, you don't like it? Really?
All right, give me the pitch. Give me the pitch. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Okay,
give me the pitch.
Here's the pitch. I think that our show has a lot of people who are like really into the show. They like following along, right?
Yep.
They like supporting what we do directly and indirectly, right? I think they're the type of people who are annoyed probably by ads to some degree.
Speculative
type of thing. Speculative, but
although having just said I was annoyed by my own ad, it has good evidence. But carry on. It's speculative at best.
I think it could be interesting to have, because part of the premise is like we have this sort of tight knit circle, which you all out there are a part of, and it sort of formalizes that a little bit. Like the people who are inside, like I think it would be easier to make time for certain types of things people have asked us for, like. Could we do business dad episodes that are like just not questions from the whole world, but questions from like the people inside the circle of trust who are in with us here? Could we do, whatever? We could do little special things for the inner circle. We could have swag for the inner circle, maybe. We could do stuff like that. I don't know. It just seems like a more direct. It's like SaaS, right? It's like we're providing something, you're paying us. If we stop providing it, you would stop paying us, and that's all fine. But it's like these things are aligned. Like you look forward to the show every week being out, and that supports the show and happening. It's direct. It's I don't know. I just think it's intriguing.
It's intriguing. I don't love it.
Okay.
I think I hate it.
Oh man,
but I
did not expect you to do this.
Definitely don't love it.
Okay. What's your counter?
My counter is we just charge more for sponsorships. We just make more money.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. That's kind of interesting. Before we let's not even go past that, because the thing that's so kind of interesting is like, well, I guess it depends what we want to do with the show, right? Like to me, like to get a good number of sponsors, you really need the show to get a lot bigger. You need more listeners, right? All that stuff. Like that has to be the emphasis. If we were trying, not that we're necessarily even trying to do this, but if we wanted to be like, okay, we want the show to produce like a really significant percentage of our income. Let's say that was a goal, which is not our goal currently at all.
Correct.
You have to just have more numbers, right? We just need more viewers, more listeners, the whole thing, which it has been growing, and that's great.
It has been growing.
But I still think like what we talk about is there's inherently a cap. Like I don't think we're going to have 200,000 people subscribe to the show. I think it's unlikely, right? So that's a ceiling. And if you don't get up into pretty high numbers, it's just going to be hard to have 3 sponsors an episode and to like make that a thing. And then again, if you have 3 sponsors an episode, you get into like now we have 3 ad slots an episode, and that becomes its own thing that maybe we don't love. So that would be my counter there. It's not just like only because it's like hard to tell somebody like, okay, it's $10,000 to be an ad on a show with 5,000 listeners or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's not a reasonable amount of money, right? So like, and maybe somebody would pay it, right? But you're not going to be able to count on it. And then being a one-off thing is sort of worse because it's like if it was like, hey, we have all these sponsors, and now we just have a person who deals with sponsors and
admin overhead is a lot.
Yeah, right. But like now it's like a random thing where like I get a random email and like I go back and forth, and then they send me like we got to do a W-9 and you got to sign our contract and like so. But they're only doing 2 ads, right? So like, so it is like again the amount we are charging is enough now that it's fine, right? But at the same time, it's like I think it is a little bit. It's just a weird zone in there where it's like not enough to like have a person work on it who's not one of us, but it's also not so much that it's a no-brainer.
I will cede a little bit of ground here because I have not done any of the actual work to like get the sponsors or get paid. And so like the fact that you just mentioned W-9, that's the first time I've thought about a W-9 in forever. And I think, oh, Ian and or Dave probably has to do some admin work here. So I will cede a little bit of ground there.
Okay.
I will, however, disagree with your solution to the problem. So if the problem is admin overhead for a little bit of money plus some sort of like audience interruption sort of thing, here's my specific solution. But first, that's a tease. We call that a tease. Here's my broad philosophy. I would rather take money from companies than take money from individuals.
Okay.
In this regard, I would rather take money from a company that has many millions of dollars versus charging a friend to be in an inner circle kind of deal.
Okay.
That makes me feel a little bit like, I don't know about that. It just makes me feel a little. That's why I don't take GitHub sponsors, because it's like I don't want to ask somebody, hey, can you give me $5? When I could potentially just turn around and ask a company, can you give me $10,000? And so I feel bad just like taking money from the everyman. So that's philosophical, right or wrong. Who can say? Philosophical. Right. My specific solution is I think we could do something that is perhaps relatively novel, which is, content. We love content. And that is the Peter Levels style of selling things, which is where we just put up just a big old list of upcoming episodes with Stripe, click to pay links, and people either buy them or they don't. But that is your only, that's the only way that you get to sponsor the show, and it's open. And so, like, if you want to negotiate, like, I don't know, those spots may go away. All you can do is click buy now, pay, and then put in your under 1,000 characters or whatever, equates to about a minute of speaking. Under 1 minute of speaking ad read. That's it. And like maybe as the episodes get closer, the price goes down because it's like, hey, the slot is unfilled and we're recording on Monday, so you got a discount. But if you wait for it to go down, somebody may snipe you, or Stripe may come in and buy up the next 10 episodes, and like, so that is my specific solution to the general problem.
I think that that would be great and easier to manage. I am a little bit dubious that the idea that that's a thing that companies actually do. I just think in everybody so far we've dealt with, and in Bootstrapped we had some sponsors too, back in the day, and it's just never that straightforward. There's always like, well, here's the thing we need, and like that we send us the ad read so we can approve it, and like there's just stuff in there that I don't know that, like, they have like this one coming up soon is like they have a standard set of things you have to agree to, and like they're not going to do it unless you agree to them. So, which is fine, right? But it's just, I think there is more one-off than that. It's not going to be just like click this button.
That's just an opening gambit. You don't have to agree to anything. You don't have to do any freaking thing.
You don't have to do anything,
right?
But like, if you want their money, you might have to do the thing.
If the only means of interaction for them was click a buy button or don't, they might become quite flexible on what's required.
They might. I gotta remember, you're dealing with marketing people here who are not like the developers. So the marketing people, I think, they're under a different set of rules and constraints. But it's possible that would work. Or if it's the right price, obviously there's a lot of just devs with products we know that would probably be willing to do that, right? Okay, but so that aside for a second, that's an interesting idea.
It creates a spectacle, which we love. It creates a spectacle.
Does it
yeah, you go to mostlytechnical.com/sponsor, and as like a non-sponsoring person, you get to go and see like, oh wow, these guys are selling ads for this much, and oh wow, look, these are not taken. Oh, they're not doing very well. Oh, these are taken. Oh wow, they're doing great. I should tell my friends. It's like, it's interesting.
I mean, if we're gonna make a spectacle, I think it would be more interesting if it was like an auction.
That's like great. I love it.
You know what I mean?
Let's write it.
It starts as $1, and you bid up. Yeah. All right. So
see, that's fun. Okay, he's hooked. All right. What's your other idea?
Well, I'd be interesting for the audience. I'd be interested your feedback on if you would be annoyed by random people's ads because that now you're just probably gonna have random people winning ads potentially,
Yep.
right? Oh, for $50, we're on most technical this week because nobody else bid it up, and so
50?
now
Get
it's
out of
like
here.
Sal from Iowa, who's like just
I
wants to
mean, Sal from
say what
Idaho,
they want.
that's more entertaining. That's more, honestly,
That's probably
that
more entertaining. That's
that
true.
might be appealing to be like, what random bum off the street are they reading an ad for this week? I might listen to that. But if
Okay.
you do Squarespace for 12 weeks in a row, like I'm tuning
Yeah.
out. So maybe
we've heard the Squarespace ad, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. So that's interesting. Let's put that aside for a second. What's up with your take on this, like people paying you money and you feeling bad about it is intriguing to me. So
Thank you.
first of all, it's an amount of money that's not really impactful to anybody, right? It's not like if it's $7 or whatever, like that's not people are paying that at Starbucks for coffee at this point. It's not, it's not $100 a month to be on the inside. It's $5 or $7 or $8, whatever it is, whatever. So why does let's go deeper there. Why does that bother you? Like, I think this is even different than GitHub, because GitHub, you're really not offering them anything in the default state. Like I know like Caleb's done it differently than that, but the default state is like, hey, give me money for the open source stuff I do. It's there's no commitment at all. I may never do anything again, and you're just going to be paying me forever. Who knows? Whereas if it's like, hey, you're getting a certain series of benefits that the other listeners who don't support the show don't get, that you are getting value in return, right? So why is that bad to charge for that value? I'm curious, because it would be things we don't do now, right? Like we don't do special episodes generally, for example, or swag or whatever.
So here are two thoughts. The first thought is on some level, and this will lead to my second thought, because I recognize that this is not correct. On some level, it feels like I'm asking people to pay to be my friend.
Okay. Oh, man,
it's
we're
like
deep on the couch now.
Right, I know. So on some level, it feels like, hey, if you want to be near to me and like have these like fun insider chats, just pay me $7. It's like,
should we do it on OnlyFans if we do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It just feels okay. It feels a little bit icky. Like just paying to be in an inner circle has always felt internet markety scammer to me. The problem with that point of view is you said we offer them things that we don't currently offer. And so that moves into an exchange of value, which I'm much more comfortable with. But then are we now dancing for $500, $300 a month? Like, are we now like on the hook to be entertaining for this extra insider circle and getting way less than we got on sponsorships and doing way more work? You know what I mean?
Possibly. I think the thing is like
hate that.
So in terms of pure Gordon Gekko ruthless businessman, right? I think that the upside is probably less capped on a Patreon type model than on the sponsorships. It is because I think we can get like a higher percentage of people potentially to join something like that versus the number of advertisers that we could regularly acquire for the size show that it is, or probably could ever. I mean, you don't need to be a huge show. We do this. All you listeners out there are a very valuable market demographic, so doesn't need to be a million listeners to be very
beautiful and very smart.
And they're very gorgeous. Just we have the most gorgeous audience.
Nobody's ever seen it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Exactly. So this kind of leads to my other question, though. So what do you think? So that implies that not many people would join.
It does,
right? Because if it's like $300 a month, right?
Right.
But like if we get 500 people to join, well, that's like $40,000 a year. So that's not life changing for us, but it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. But what can we get from sponsorships? $40,000 a year. Easily. I mean, easily, because I'm not doing any of the work, but easily.
Let's go. We're going to go see what we've made. If I can log into Zero, which is always a disaster. Let's see if we can log into Zero. We're going to do it live on the air. See what we've done so far. Now, we haven't really pushed it, to be fair. Like, there's just a thing up there. Like, we haven't made a spectacle or anything like that. Is there any chance we're going to be able to do this? Okay. Income statement. Let's getting real businessy.
Getting real business, Dad, here on the pod.
Very
you just said income
business.
statement out loud.
Let's say 2024. Mostly technical. Okay, mostly technical so far this year has made $14,000 in sponsorship.
Okay.
It doesn't count the one that's coming up shortly because they haven't paid us yet. So could we get to 40?
Yes.
Probably. Right?
Way more easily than asking individuals for a few coins here and there. So what's an individual pay? What's an individual pay? $7 a month? $9 a month?
Let's say $7. Let's say $7.
$7 a month.
Yeah.
I wrote down 7. I don't know what to do next. Okay, so let's say we want $40,000 divided by 12 months, which is $3,300 a month, divided by $7. That's 475 people.
Yeah.
Paying $7 a month for what? That feels impossible.
Really?
That feels way harder than
it could be.
If we had 40, let's see, there are 12 months in a year. I know that much. Let's say, no, I can do this. I can just jump straight to weeks. There are 52 weeks
math
in a year.
On a podcast,
yeah.
baby. Let's
so we
go.
can do $40,000 divided by 52 weeks. That's $770 per episode for a sponsor. That's way lower than what we're currently charging, right?
That is a bit lower than we charge us.
So if we just get one sponsor per episode at even lower than we're charging now, then we hit our 40,000. 475 people. That's so many people. I would imagine 30 would sign up.
Well, in the beginning, of course.
That's it. 30.
Okay. That's intriguing. I think one of the problems, though, so the thing with it's just like all subscription revenue businesses, right? Is like the 30 grows and it just gets bigger over time, right? And there's an organicness to that. Whereas like the sponsorship, that's not true. So like
no. You just applied a growth factor to one side, but not the other. So if the podcast, if we don't have this insider track, the podcast will hopefully still continue to grow.
Sure, the podcast
and the sponsor dollars will go up.
True. I guess so what I was getting at wasn't the amount, right?
Okay.
What I'm getting at more is that at least right now we tend to get sponsorships from small companies.
Okay.
And the small companies are doing 2 episodes.
Yep.
Or 1 episode or 4 episodes or whatever it is, right? And so there's not a regularity to that. They're not like Squarespace, who's like, okay, we want 20 episodes a year for 3 years. Like, here's a contract and we're going to, okay, great. So it's very hit or miss. There's going to be a lot of availability on this board if we were to build it right now, because there's not, again, it depends on how we do it. If it's cheap, I'm sure people would, but we're talking about like $1,000 a month, right? So if we're saying a week, so if we're saying $1,000 a week, I think there's actually a pretty limited number of companies that would want to regularly do that in our circles now. Now, maybe we can get into different circles.
Right.
Again, we haven't pushed this at all. We don't ever talk about it on the show. It's like just literally people who randomly show up and are like, I want to, great. So yeah. So I'm not opposed to this idea of building out the sponsorship more, but I did want to discuss this because I thought it was interesting because a lot of other podcasts do have memberships.
They do. So let me pitch you a vision for what this /sponsor page could be. Okay. It could be, it could pull in analytics from both Transistor and YouTube. And it could have like some pretty charts and graphs over how we're trending, who we're reaching, that sort of stuff. I don't know how you get that, but who we're reaching, episode numbers. We get to ride on this whole wave of like, open startup, whatever, and do that whole nonsense thing. Right. But it's also like it kind of turns the price is still high, but it turns it into an impulse buy of like, oh yeah, I got budget that I need to spend by the end of Q4. I'm just going to click 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to buy 3 of these episodes for, whatever it is. Yeah. And there goes my marketing budget. And that way I don't lose it. And I don't have to I, as the buyer, don't have to negotiate back and forth. And we can say, hey, if you want to buy more than 10 episodes, send us an email. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. That's interesting. But it does seem like it could be a cool, like live dashboard, pure capitalism sort of thing, especially if you code it in some sort of algorithm, which sounds fun, but also like a quagmire. So that's my vision for it.
We have to build a whole platform. We have to build a podcast sponsorship platform so that every podcast can do what you're talking about.
Yes. Before we do anything, we must do everything. That is a great point. So here's a question. What is before they were purchased, what did syntax.fm do? Do you have any idea if they took just regular old sponsors? Yeah, me either.
I've never listened really. Honestly.
Yeah, me either.
Who did they get bought by?
Century.
Oh, actually acquired the show.
Yeah.
Well, so that's another
if you're listening, we are up for acquisition for sure.
We're always up. Everything's got a price. But that's kind of along the lines of what I was just going to say, which is there is the whole other. So I think our focus hasn't necessarily been on maximum listens. We don't do it's not a guest on every week, which is the stuff you do.
We don't ask for reviews.
Listens. Right. We don't, you should all go review, but we generally don't ask for reviews.
Until now. Yeah.
Whatever. We don't push it in that way. It's we did a show, you guys should listen. That's pretty much where which I think is fine for the amount of time we both have is fine. It's where we're at too, right? So, but would we want to be part of a podcast network where they do all the ad sales when we insert the ad sales? I don't know if we're big enough to even be in a podcast network, but that type of thing is out there.
I vote the /sponsor Spectacle before we did a podcast ad network.
Try our own
they're gonna take 50% or whatever of And this is just interesting. And you know what? Here we go.
No,
here it is.
Give it to me.
This is an Ian Livewire Flux side project that furthers the empire. So it's whoa, that's a 1 + 1 = 3, which is what we call synergy. So
how many ads an episode? We start with just one?
I think we start with just one until we've proven that we can sell out the inventory.
Okay.
You like it?
It's not terrible. I do like it.
It's not terrible.
I like a
spectacle. It's not terrible, folks.
I like an Aaron Francis spectacle.
Ian loves it. It's not terrible. I really do think so. There really, I think, is an angle of this where people would talk about it. Yeah. It is remarkable. People will remark on it to say oh wow, this is very transparent, and you can just literally click buy right now. Yeah. That's kind of wild. And so I do think there is something about that not only furthers the odds of us getting sponsors, but also opens up us getting more listeners. Who are these guys? This is interesting. I've never heard of this show.
They are.
Yeah, exactly. The nerve. So I don't know. I like it. I like it.
I might whip something up here.
There we go.
A lot of bet.
We got him.
Possible.
Hook, line, and sinker.
It's possible. It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot.
Well, it's worth a shot. Could be for the new year, kind of. Start January 1st.
Yep.
Open dates up from there or something like that.
Yep. I can help you pull all the Transistor stuff. I've done that before. Their API is great.
Oh, I can help you pull all the YouTube.
I can help you pull YouTube stats. I've done that as well. Their API is not as great because it's Google, but I've got it figured out. So if you want to do some charts and graphs and let's turn it into a SaaS platform. We'll get rich, Ian. Let's do that.
I love a SaaS that starts on a show. Nothing better than that.
I do too. And you know who has money? Podcasters.
They do.
Clearly.
Maybe Justin's going to listen to this and just build this for us, Justin. Put it in there. Just integrate. Just make it happen. It's all my whole other podcast empire is in Transistor. Just give me one more thing that lets them.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. And you know what? We should buy it.
Concept though.
We should build it and make them buy it from us.
Ooh, there we go. Now we're talking. Got to build a platform. We can't just build something and use it for ourselves. It's
No.
A big undertaking.
Yeah. Got to be so big that we'll give up. That's what we got to do.
Which I give up very easily. So I'm already given up.
Yeah, you're already giving up on the idea.
Yeah, I'm already done with the idea. No. I think I like this idea. All right, we will try this. So that's what we're going to do.
Dear listener, let us know what you think.
Yeah, we want to hear about.
I'm very curious what y'all think about this.
I want the feedback.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to pay us $8 a month instead of ads? Would you prefer ads? Would you prefer none of it? What are your thoughts? There we go. We really fleshed this idea out. So there's a lot of info out there.
You guys think Ian and I talk all the time? We do. It's just Monday mornings. We talk all the time on Monday mornings.
That's the entire extent of our conversation.
That's great.
A little back channel texting here there, but that's it.
A little bit.
Okay, I don't know. What do you want? You didn't talk about your surgery. Give us at least 2 seconds on the surgery.
Where are we at on?
And you owed me a Godfather. Were you on the couch with the Godfather?
1 hour 15. I knew that I forgot something. I forgot to watch
The Godfather. I knew you weren't going to do it.
Forgot to watch The Godfather. So had the surgery on Monday afternoon, and came home. So Monday night, First of all, laughing gas
You're a
is
big fan?
awesome. Big fan. Huge fan.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
I'm glad it's not readily available because that
Right.
stuff, I just felt like the king of the world. I was like flying through outer space, but in scenes from Interstellar. I'm pushing on the
Oh, wow.
bookshelf. I'm like
Oh, you're that guy.
communicating
Yeah, you're
communicating
floating.
across
Yeah.
time. I was like, this is awesome. I should do this every day. And then realized, oh, that's probably called being addicted to drugs, so I shouldn't do that. But it was awesome. The laughing gas ruled.
Nice.
It did wear off, 5-10 minutes after, which is great. So
That's
I'm
unfortunate.
not
Yeah.
just, I know it's a bummer. I'm not just like in a stupor for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then had some whatever, ibuprofen plus, like whatever's right above Tylenol, prescription only. So I took that for maybe like a day or two and then just switched to regular Tylenol.
Yeah.
First night was a little bit rough, just kind of hard to sleep. But then after that, it honestly wasn't too bad. I just kind of had to like stay in bed and keep ice applied so that that's as in detail as I'll go. And it was fine. I had all these dreams of like I'm gonna relax. I'm just gonna like watch TV, and then I thought, oh no, I should work on a bunch of stuff. And so I think I spent much of that time in bed working on Solo, the TUI, because that reached a level of like flow / obsession that I haven't had in a long time, where it's like, this freaking rules, and I'm inside the machine. I felt like I was in Tron, like riding a bike around, like flipping bits to turn things different colors. So I kind of burned all my time just working, but it was so fun. And so let's see, Monday night I was in bed, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then back at work on Thursday. And it was fine.
There we go.
Yep.
All right. And you're not going to have any more kids. You're good.
No, God willing. Wes Boss apparently had a kid 4 years after his surgery.
We got a few stories about that along the way here. People where it actually didn't totally work, which would definitely be a bit of a problem.
Well, a huge bit of a problem. I'm very aware that I need to like make sure that it took. He's like, wait 10 weeks and then we'll make sure that it took. Right. This whole like 4 years later it grows back thing.
How can it grow back? How do the tubes reconnect? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see how that's even possible.
It's called science. That's all I know about it. But yeah, that was terrifying. So I don't know how you prevent that, but I'm definitely going to make sure that it worked, because our neighbor didn't make sure that it worked and they had another kid. Like he had the surgery and then like a year later they had they were pregnant again.
It was like they didn't even do the surgery or something. It didn't go back.
Scam.
It's just like
put him under and woke him back up. It was like, it'll be $5,000. Thanks for coming in. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. I don't know. We got a couple other things. Should we do lightning round here?
Yeah. Tell us. You've been in and out on Markdown. You're just no. What's the deal with Markdown?
No, I just wanted to get your
take on
this. I'm Markdown Meh. I've always been Markdown Meh. I mean, it's fine. Like I like it for headings. I like it for bolding. That's pretty much it. Like I still don't remember the order of a link. I still to this day am like, is it the parentheses? Is it the brackets? How do you do a link? I don't remember. Like
I'll tell you how you remember. This is the only way that I remember. In regular writing, parenthetical expressions are like describing, like, by the way, this is kind of what that means. When you're writing Markdown, that's exactly what the parentheses are. It's like, by the way, this is where this links to. That's it.
Right.
So just remember that a parentheses means, by the way, here's where this goes.
Here's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't take over the world.
It didn't. Like, it's not for normies.
We have Markdown in HelpSpot. Okay, you could choose Markdown instead of a WYSIWYG. Guess what? Nobody uses Markdown.
Nobody cares.
Everybody uses WYSIWYG. Yep. So it's just like, it's not like you could depend on it. It's not like it's everywhere. It's not like there's a nice editor baked into the browser or whatever. The only good Markdown editor I've ever used my whole life is in the Bear Notes app, which is very good. Great. But all the rest of them are terrible. Yep. And so it's like there's no good WYSIWYG sort of preview experience. It's fine. It's fine. But there's always weird edge case stuff. It's fine. It's not great.
It's fine. The only I like, as kind of a nerd, I like the authoring experience of Markdown. I do like that. in a way, it is very tailwindy to me in that I can be writing the code and know basically what it's going to look like, when it comes out the other side, which is really nice. However, it is extremely limited. And, I use Markdown on aaronfrancis.com, but I run it through my own rendering pipeline because I need a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, here, let me hook into this and walk the AST so that I can add stuff. It's like, no, this is insane. What are we doing? This is so stupid.
Or you can put HTML in there, but then now I have this gobs of HTML in there, which is all weird. Like
it's all weird.
It's like defeats the purpose of this whole thing.
Yep, I agree. I think the dream is that Markdown will satisfy your text editing needs in an application, and everybody eventually says like, all right, we got to bail out from Markdown. We just need more information in this document that Markdown cannot handle without doing goofy stuff. Like GitHub has invented its own flavored Markdown. It's like, oh, now I got to learn this new, not HTML, not Markdown, this new thing. So
that's not going to be compatible. Half the reason to do this is so like I can move this file somewhere else someday, but now you can't because it's in this custom Markdown flavor, which won't even work and whatever.
I do like Obsidian has a good interface as well. And if there's a place for normies to use Markdown, in my opinion, it's to hide it behind a WYSIWYG style editor. So all you get is like a tip tap style toolbar that's like H1 through 6, bold, italic, link, whatever. But under the hood, it uses Markdown as like the storage mechanism. But even that, I'm like, I don't know.
And even that, there's never been a good one of those.
Yeah,
the bare one's the only good one I've ever used.
Writing a WYSIWYG is awful too.
No, you can't write a WYSIWYG. You would have thought somebody by now, though. It's been 30 years or whatever. It's been like somebody should have written a decent web browser-based Markdown editor, but there are none. They're all terrible. So
well, if I'm judging by the conversation on Twitter, it's easy to do everything with AI now. I could do that in 4 seconds if I wanted to. But here's the question: where's all the good software? If it's so easy to make now, where is it?
All right, let's go down this path very quickly. AI. I feel like it's got its uses. I think for very specific uses, very cool. And it's an interesting helper to professionals, like as we're seeing in code. I think it's great. Like, write these tests for me. I don't want to write the tests. It does a decent job. Tweak. Okay, whatever. Refactor something. Great. But I just think, I don't know if we're going to get to where like everybody thinks it's going to be, where it's like ubiquitous, does everything. Like, at least not this version of AI that's just this big pattern matcher, basically. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to, it'll infiltrate into stuff and it'll smooth over edges places, which will be incredibly valuable and unlock hundreds of billions of dollars in value. I'm not doubting that, but it's not going to be like, oh yeah, write this app and it just does the whole thing. It's all perfect. And that's just even software, which has been highly specialized for. If you get into other fields where it's not as specialized, it's going to be even less capable. So I don't know.
Yes, fully agree. I am not an AI doomer, but I fully agree. I just don't think, I mean, there's just so much of like building a product that is taste, and to say nothing of like the underlying infrastructure, which itself includes taste. Like the underlying code, I think needs to be tasteful, in my opinion. A lot of people disagree with that. But the product, even the facade, like the top level of the product, you have to have a little bit of taste. And so if you tell an AI like, hey, do this, it's going to do it, but it might not be a good product. And I think that's where a lot of people are too optimistic, where I can say, hey, create me an app, and it's going to be this great usable app that covers all the edge cases and fundamentally understands how a human would interact with this thing. I think it's just going to miss that. What it is great for is when you're trying to figure out what the hell ANSI codes are. And there's been 50 years of writing about these ANSI escape sequences and how terminals work. And so you can just go ask the GPT, like, what does this mean? And it can pull, like, is basically my research assistant, and it can pull it all in. And I can say, great, can you write me a regex that captures this for me? Boom, done. It's great. But then I still have to like do all the logic and reasoning and come back and say, oh, actually, can you adjust the regex for to include the 7 and 8 instead of just A through Z? It's like, sure, yeah, I can do that. But I had to know that was necessary. So I think it's incredibly valuable. But no, Alexa, make me an app. We're not there yet.
Yeah. And even in the business use, it's like, even with HelpSpot, like customer service is like the most straightforward use case. And it's not like, I mean, we get people asking about it because HelpSpot has the sprinkling AI. It doesn't do like the auto responding stuff. But it's not like, oh, every customer is at our door and being like, you don't have AI. This is we have to have it or we're leaving. It's like, I don't know. It's also because it's the kind of thing where like in software, you also have an advantage of like it does something slightly wrong. You will eventually find it and fix the wrong thing as the
Correct.
human, and then
Yes.
it's done and it's fixed and it works. But
Yep.
like the customer service, just as one example, goes on forever. And if 2% of the time it just answers wrong, like that's kind of bad.
It's
Like,
kind of bad.
and so even though a human answers wrong sometimes too, the AI is not. I think there's just something different about that aspect of it.
Here's what it is, and here's the reason I like AI as a helper for coding. Is the problem, in my opinion, with these language models is they're not deterministic. So you could ask it the same thing 10 times and get 11 different answers. Frustrating. However, if the answer that it gives you is code is deterministic. And so you take that code and you put it in your application. It either works or it doesn't.
Right.
But it's not going to work. It's not going to mutate over time. Yeah. And that's the part where I feel a little wonky about is like, hey, let me just feed something to the AI and then turn around and feed it back to the user. It's like,
hope that goes well.
I would rather have the AI help me create a deterministic system that I can then trust and count on and test and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or even like for writing, it's that same thing. Like it's producing writing, and I can decide if it's good or not good, totally. And I can tweak it, and then it's done, it's set. I ship that to the world and whatever I'm writing or whatever. So, all right, I like it. All right, so you have a busy Monday. That's why we're actually recording this on Friday, because you're going to be so busy Monday. So I don't know. You have that on the list. What's busy Monday?
We are producing our first guest course, and an instructor is coming here to Dallas to record in the studio next week.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we're doing a SQLite on Rails course. And it's going to be very, it's not necessarily like just SQLite and how to use it in Rails. Basically, it's going to be like how to build an application quickly using SQLite and Rails.
Okay.
And so, a guy named Stephen Markheim is going to come here next week, stay in a hotel in Dallas. He's going to come to the studio every day, and we're gonna create a freaking course. And so it's very exciting. This is like this is a little bit of an experiment. We're gonna see if it works. And so he is. He's, I think, the perfect person to test with, because not only does he know SQLite super well and Rails, he's got great standing in the community. He's very conscientious, very thoughtful. And so in terms of like the vibe, I think the vibe is right. It's just going to be interesting to see how we I'll be sitting out there in the other room, probably just like quietly working while he's in here recording, and it's going to be fun. So he'll be here all next week.
So he's already done the prep work. Like he has what he wants to do in each video, and all that stuff is ready.
Yeah, so we've been working together just a little bit. Like he put together an outline, and then he and I, had a 2-hour call and just like talked through it and kind of like changed the framing a little bit. And so now it feels like he's ready to go. And so he's given a few talks recently on SQLite on Rails, and so he's like, his mind has been working on that, and now it's just coalescing into these videos next week. So it's
I think this is another good timing thing too, because I feel like Rails has really like Laravel's adopted SQLite, but Rails is like really like it is the future. Yes. We talk about it constantly. DHH is talking about it constantly.
You're a fool if you don't use it.
Right, like it is like we've changed the framework heavily to be like SQLite focused. Like it's really on board it fully. So it seems like that'll be good timing if you guys get that out here in the next month or whatever, 6 weeks or however long it's gonna take to edit. But
it'll be out in the new year, so we're gonna take it a little bit slow. But I think the conversation is moving that direction.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna use your studio, just your spot. Nice.
Yep. We thought about pushing it off to the new year, but if we get the warehouse on January 1st, it's gonna take 4 weeks to get all this crap moved over, set up, and invent a new background from scratch. Like, let's just do it here.
Just do it there. Totally the way to go. Then it's just in the can, and like whenever you produce it and get it out. But like, and you don't want that pressure of like the new place. This way you can be like, I'm getting started and whatever you're focusing on then, not like, well, we have this deadline, person's got to come in.
Exactly.
You're trying to do stuff fast and quick. So, because we want to see you building sets. We want video.
I know.
That's what I want.
It's coming.
All right.
It's coming.
Forward to it. All right. I think that was a good one. Let's leave it there.
the thing that I want people to do is tell us what they
Mm.
think about the /sponsorship or /
Yes.
sponsor idea. That's what I really want. If you take one thing away from this, tell us your opinion on that, please.
Yeah. If you're a business owner or marketer, would you use that? And then obviously, just as a listener of the show, would you want to pay to do for whatever bonus stuff we might do? That kind of thing. So yeah, any feedback on that whole conversation would be really cool. I love putting these things at the end of the episode. That's how we know you're a real
Those are the
listener.
real ones. That's
Those
right.
are the real ones. All right, thanks everybody. If you got this far, you know where to follow us. But hey, follow us on mostlytechnical.com, at mostlytechpod. We're also mostly technical on Blue Sky.
Never heard of it.
There, mostlytechnical.com. And mostlytechnicalpodcast@gmail.com. And we will be back next week. Talk to you later.
See ya.